Deadline for a key provision of the SAFE Act is less than 4 months away. Gun owners have to register their assault weapons, or what are now classified as assault weapons, by April 15th. But one group is fighting for the repeal of the SAFE Act and does not want to see any registration happen at all. And so NY2A is holding a series of forums for gun owners to explain their options. Jake Palmateer from the NY2A Grassroots Coalition is with me now to further discuss these forums. Welcome to Capitol Tonight.
Hi Liz, thanks for having me.
Okay, so it seems, if I'm not mistaken, and this is from a blog post on your website, on the organization's website, that you are encouraging people to flout the law, the registration requirement. Is that correct?
We are encouraging people not to register any weapons with the state. And that's something that the gun rights advocates in the state have promoted from the very day that this passed the state Senate in the middle of the night. The message of "we will not comply" has been one that's been heard all across the state, from Plattsburgh to Long Island all the way out to Buffalo.
We should also note that the "we will not comply" message has also come from some sheriff's offices, not where it comes to registration, but where it comes to actually enforcing the act. Some law enforcement are not doing so, so you're certainly not alone.
That's correct, and we're very proud to have them on board with us.
But why exactly? I mean, your concern is that once you register, there will be a database. So that database has not been available to the Freedom of Information Act, so we don't know how many people have already registered, correct?
That's correct. Different media organizations have tried to foil that number. We've tried to foil that number, and we've run up against a roadblock. The state's not releasing the actual number. The state police superintendent made an estimate of hundreds of thousands of so-called assault weapons being possessed lawfully by citizens in New York when the SAFE Act was actually adopted. And we've heard estimates of between less than 400 up to 2,800. And if you look at that ratio, that seems to be a very, very low compliance rate.
Heard from where?
There were reports of less than 400 circulating on the internet from pretty good sources back in June. Now that's after about 2 months of registration. We also had some information from a gathering of retired and current state troopers where it was discussed that about 2,800 rifles had been registered.
And they're as law enforcement members, they are required to register theirs, correct?
Well, they would be required to register their personal owned ones,
right,
just like everyone else. However, some departments have actually officially required and made statements to their membership, as reported by Assemblyman Steve McLaughlin recently, to actually make sure they register.
Okay, so let me just make sure I understand this. What you're talking about is weapons that are classified now as assault by the SAFE Act, correct? And if you own them at the time that the SAFE Act was passed, you are now grandfathered in, but you have to tell the state that you have them.
That's correct. You have to register them with the state. However, they aren't really yours, if that makes sense. What I mean by that is, if once you register with the state and you were to pass away, you can not send those weapons down the line to your descendants, which is a time-honored tradition of gun ownership in this country. I have, in my family, we have all kinds of rifles and shotguns passed down through the generations. And these are very commonly owned firearms, and that's one of the things that a lot of our members think is very egregious, that no longer will their children be able to have the same rights that they do.
Okay, but the problem that you have with the state knowing who owns what is that there's a concern about later on down the road outright confiscation.
That's correct, and there's a history for this in the Empire State. In fact, in New York City in 1967, they required that all long guns and shotguns be registered with the city. And at the time, promises were made that it wouldn't lead to confiscation and that the registration fee would never exceed $3. Over the years, that registration fee crept up, and it became more expensive for people to register long guns and shotguns with the city. And eventually, under the administration of Mayor David Dinkins, they outright outlawed certain weapons.
Okay.
And they were ordered to, New York City residents were ordered to either turn them in or remove them from the city.
But are you not concerned, though, that you're encouraging your members to become, in effect, criminals? I mean, you're actually encouraging them to participate in criminal behavior. Even when you have law enforcement saying, some of them, we're not enforcing this, we've got bigger fish to fry, we're not going to go door to door, we're not going to ask you if you are registered, etc. You're really saying to people, don't follow the law.
NY2A isn't advocating a particular course of action. NY2A is actually educating New Yorkers on what their options are. And among those options are certain relatively inexpensive modifications they can do to weapons such as an AR-15 to allow them to be not considered assault weapons under the state law. Simple things such as changing out of stock. Functionally, it does nothing to change how that weapon works. It's simply a cosmetic adjustment that would allow that weapon to not be considered an assault weapon under the state's law and therefore not be required to register. So we're encouraging people to take a look at their options, and if that's what they choose to do, then they can avoid registration.
We come, though, I mean, this all comes at a time when we've just marked the anniversary of Newtown. So people are particularly sensitive, maybe, to this issue. That's what sparked this passage of the SAFE Act. That's what sparked the governor to push so hard to be the first in the country after that massacre to move in New York on gun control, even before the federal government did, before many other states did. So when people are watching this and they're not firearms supporters, or they're afraid of them outright, or they're fans of gun control or whatever, and they think, what would be so bad to have at least a knowledge of where these weapons, which are dangerous, are located in the state? What's your response to that?
Well, we certainly understand the tragedy that happened in Newtown, but I would like to point out that clearly the governor was really quick to politicize the issue and get it passed. If it was such an important issue, it could have used some debate before it got rammed through the legislature. And I'd also like to point out, in 2011, according to the FBI statistics, there were just 5 homicide deaths in New York State as a result of the use of a rifle. 26 people were beaten to death with hands and feet. And so it's hard for me to understand personally what the SAFE Act was trying to accomplish in that particular instance.
These forums that you're having are coming up, right? There's one in January and there's one in February, is that correct?
The way it's working right now, we're working with our partner organizations, including the Second Amendment Coalition of Western New York, that's based out in the Buffalo area. We have one that is tentatively scheduled for Schenectady County in January 29th, and we're trying to get some more firm dates on elsewhere in January, also in February, around the state. We're booking rooms and that sort of thing, putting the legwork in right now.
I know that politically, this is something that gun rights advocates are looking at. I mean, I know that people are active and are upset with the governor. I mean, do you believe that this upset will continue to become a true movement and vote various different lawmakers out, including the governor?
We really do believe that, and that's been our goal from day one. We were essentially founded after one of the major rallies in the state capitol. We wanted to find a way to bring all these different groups and individuals from around the state together to kind of focus our efforts, and we work with a political action committee that we're affiliated with, and so we can try to influence elections that way. But we are very hopeful. We see more and more anti-SAFE Act signs going up on people's lawns. They may have had to dust some of the snow off in recent days, but they keep going up. We've been at public and private events of the governor to protest, along with anti-frackers and pro-frackers. It's kind of a crazy thing going on out there.
Yeah.
But we've been very public, very vocal, and we expect it to continue. We expect to key in on some key legislative races where we think we can make a difference. Ultimately, we want to boot out every senator and assemblyman who voted for it. We know that's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's a big undertaking.
But we want, if we can knock off 10, 15, if we can help do that, we'll feel we'll have accomplished something. If we can knock off the governor, that'll be great too.
An even larger undertaking. Well,
Absolutely.
We will keep tabs on this, and hopefully you will keep us posted on your organization efforts. I thank you very much for coming in this evening.
All right, thank you, Liz.